Happy Monday, November the 20th. So I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys about Dance with Darkness. So I know that it's been a little over a month since we released this book, and it has done tremendously. Um, Ray did a great job of bringing us all together, and this book has made us best-selling authors. Those of you who have been keeping up, you know that it booted Neil Gaiman and his newest anthology out of the top 25, and we took our debut spot at 21 when this book came out, and that is amazing. But here's the thing: this is a limited edition anthology, so this collection here um, is not going to be available for very much longer. I believe that it will be available through Christmas and just after the new year. I don't know exactly what date it's going to be going off the market, but I know it won't be um, very much longer, probably about another 6 or 7 more weeks, and then it's going to be gone. So if you haven't already grabbed, an ebook copy or the paperback again is it's worth it. It's a good deal. Lots of wonderful stories in it. It's been repeatedly reviewed consistently 4 and 5 stars by the majority of people that have read it. Um, and it's really just a really good collection here. So I wanted to, of course, like maybe show you all a little bit. It's super pretty inside, as you can see. And each one of the chapter headers is really beautiful with a little mask from like a masquerade. And I believe there are 11 different stories by 12 different authors in the collection. And mine, it starts on page 256, which is Exalted Anomaly. Let's see if I can show you guys. Oh, I am not doing very good at this. There we go. Right there. And then it's on 256. And so, okay. What I thought was I would, I opened right up to it. There we go. Exalted Anomaly. I thought I would read a couple of chapters, and, hear in the sirens and let you guys get a little bit of a preview of what we've done. And I have the book release party for Snowden completely booked, and I did the announcement for your attending authors if you haven't already checked that out. I'm really excited about that. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get into Exalted Anomaly here. I'm not going to go into the introduction about myself. We'll just go straight in to chapter number 1, The Unexpected Goddess. Crunch. The weight of her tiny bare feet as they motioned over the battlefield of debris that laid outstretched before the grimy-looking wretch who came to stand at the edge of the burning cabin was the only sound. Hours had passed. How many the girl could not say, but enough that the fray that had demolished her home and the echoes of her grandmother's screams as she burned within could by now become so seared into Eulalia's memory that she almost thought she could hear it even now. An acrid stench wafted through the air, but nothing remained. The bits of steam that now lifted from the earth were the only signs of the inferno that had engulfed the cabin in an instant. Why? Why, Giovanna, she murmured, wondering to herself why her grandmother had left her in such a state. How could she not know it would come? How could she not know they would brand her all these things and seek to ruin her life? Eulalia felt the urgency to flee, but where would she go? A crippling fear inched into her marrow, driving her eyes to flicker all about. Don't just stand there, Eulie, she reminded herself with an aggravating stomp, turning herself to spin into a pirouette as the colors of the forest around her began to blur together. Would it all fade? Could she simply spin it all away? Round and round she spun, the course of her platinum tresses flying out in a circular motion as her body freely rotated. However possible, celebrating in dance as if possessed by lunacy? A crack of her lips then, and the appearance of her visage morphed as the glint of her blue eyes ignited with a luminance so bright the entirety of her optics seemed to beam with a radiance that was blinding. The presentation of it all suddenly forced the spin shift of a youthful creature's body to influence the very winds. Abruptly, a gale force began to whirl about her, and the cabin and its smoldering remnants too began to move. With it, the swirling uptick of leaves and all manner of debris began to whirl together, and in moments there was nothing left. At least nothing that Eulalia could clearly make out. Around and around she spun, the tendrils of her delicate platinum locks spreading out in a circular arc that matched the rhythm of a pirouette. In motion as she was, everything seemed to meld together and unify in such a way that time slowed, and the sensation of her eyes falling to close brought Yuli into a careless revolution. Suddenly, the feeling of mist as it caressed her skin brought her to an instant halt. The breathless wave of her exerting motions finally took its toll upon her as she settled her gaze upon the smoldering aftermath of what had once been her home. She recalled so little, but Niamani's voice traced her inner ear as she grazed over the scorched terrain. But her grandmother's memory was the only thing Eulalia knew to cling to. Nia was supposed to have been her mother, but Eulalia never knew her, not for more than the brief time she had disappeared after leaving her to her grandmother's care. For all Yuli knew, Nia had already passed to the afterlife and she had no further family. The sinking of her knees as she found herself once again staring at that place she called home brought Yuli to recognize her need to find new shelter. But where and how? She had nothing save for her quickly growing wet clothing that clung to her skin. Hours later, the sound of chirping birds rose to a low crescendo, and as it did thusly, the prickling tiny hairs that seemed to exist solely for these moments began to lurch just so, enough that the whispering urge to awaken brushed at Eulalia's spirit, and soon enough the crack of her eyelid brought her focus upward instantaneously. Her body ached. The feeling of crunching within her seemed to erupt immediately, and whatever relief she had found in slumber quickly faded as it was replaced by a feeling all too unwelcome, and her words reflected so perfectly. Ugh, the damn ache in my bones is enough to render me lifeless, and where am I? Matted and tousled locks fell down across her face, and Yuli lifted her hand to brush them aside, noting the dirty ashes that had collected in her tresses. What's this but another memory of everything I lack and lost? Quickly and with a degree of annoyance, Yuli pushed her hair to the side and rose to stand with a cringe of the nose. Her nostrils flared then, pushing a bit of dirt from her nasal passages as she erected herself to fully stand. Here she was, in her perfect messy petiteness, and completely unfamiliar with her surroundings. She had no clue where the cyclone had taken her, but she knew she had to get away from the burning cottage before she too became the victim of its eager flames. The memories of her grandmother and the few stories of her mother were really all Yuli had now, but direction? She seemed to have lost that from the start. So what is this? She murmured, knowing not what if anyone were nearby. What ridiculous idiocy. Ha! Imagine me actually speaking myself in the midst of this wood. I've lost my mind. She turned to walk on, a hissing sound suddenly emitting her, and eyes widening in shock as her foot came to press down upon a vine that instantly came alive, slithering about her ankle. Yuli found her world flipping lopsided. In seconds she was dangling and suspended from heights unfathomable by an entity she could not even see. Hello? What? Another vine slapped down across her lips, and Yuli suddenly found breathing all the more challenging as she struggled and writhed against the captive vines that held her in place. Suddenly, a strange stench began to slither into her nose, and the foul odor was just enough to send Yuli's mind spinning. Oh, what is that? And as her eyes began to shift into a swirling focus, Yuli gazed upward, feeling her blood filling her cranium with increasing pressure. As her gaze began to grow foggier, a shadow seemed to dim. Stepping in the sole bit of light that filtered through the darkening trees, and the sound of a dark, nearly guttural voice reached through the obscurity to pluck at her ears. You have come for sacrifice, have you not? Steps began to echo as the entity's feet met with the ground, and the crunch of leaves seemed to grow closer with every second. Ah, ha, pardon me. His chuckling suddenly lifted to graze Yuli's ears, and she furrowed her brows in confusion. You can't speak. I know this is probably a bit alarming for you, but you see, in the past screaming gave me a crushing migraine, and I've learned to take precautions. However, I'd like to speak with you, so... The creature trailed its words, stepping forth once more. Yuli, still slightly euphoric from whatever gaseous device he'd used, remained limp as the entity continued its speech. If I remove the gag, will you behave? I'd so hate to have to punish you after all. Yuli suddenly found herself spinning about face, and the feeling of pressure upon her suddenly brought her to a halt, right before the being's abdominal region, and His crotch was suddenly facing merely inches from Yuli's face, though she could see nothing but the hazy darkness of the black that surrounded him. A quick tugging, and Eulalia sucked in a breath. How about it then, girl? Will you behave? Yes or no? The being demanded, his words subtly stern and enunciated as he brought his face toward her face toward his own. Excuse me. Smoldering orange irises flickered to meet with hers, but this was not the only unique and shocking attribute of the being before her. Nay, somehow it seemed as if even his very hair glowed like golden lava flowing from his skull. And Yuli knew he was no mortal being. Something was entirely different about this entity, and the words she knew to speak any other time fled her like tumbling blocks, kicked beneath a child's feet. I asked you a question, girl. Do not stare at me as if you are mute. Speak, the being groaned as he continued to murmur. Pathetic humans, always disturbed by a bit of magic and never ready to converse. You'd think after so many years of evolution, their puny minds would finally develop some damn etiquette. But no, here I am once again saddled with some useless idiot who can't even construct a damn sentence. His eyes rolled then, and Eulalia's focus steadied as his words settled into her mind. You know, being rude is a two-way street, and I didn't ask to be handled, asshole. Huh, what did you call me? With lips agape and wide eyes, the creature scoffed. All right, then. What's your name, fiery heart? Eulalia. What's yours? Definitely not asshole, you. Another chuckle slid from the entity. But since you are hanging around, you can call me Exilius, Prince of Umbra. You can call me Xy, or Xylius. Prince? Eulalia gulped. Well, you know, I'd rather not be hanging like this, but... So then, what will you do to get out of this, Yuli? Be my sacrifice? A loud and reverberating snicker slid free from him then, and Eulalia's heart suddenly wrenched. I'm not getting out of this one easily. That's for certain. Chapter 2, Suspended Entrapment. Xylius sat with his back pressed into a cool, solid seat that gave the appearance of a throne even as he leaned back into it with nothing but a regal demeanor. His fiery locks, however, seemed to no longer shimmer with embers like a flame, but rather seemed to have turned a light shade of blonde with red undertones that were entirely normal, by human attribute, anyway. But the setup of Xy's den was a bit edgy, and the style of the man in his natural setting seemed both relaxed and somehow hyper-vigilant. A sigh emitted him, and with a wave he nodded. Bring me the girl now, I think it's dinner time. A nod was given, with a dismissive air of authority, and the Prince of Umbra's command was instantly addressed by the exuberant voice of a guard, all too enthusiastic to serve his lordship. Aye, your majesty, I shall bring her straight away, sir. Skedaddle, then, make haste, Xylius stated, his eyes still burning with the same intensity as before, which seemed to serve as a double edge of encouragement that the guard did not take lightly. Yes, yes, straight away, your highness. The guard moved about quickly, turning upon heel quickly, and began to rush into the shadows with no further ado. Your Majesty, an interjecting tone brushed Xylius' ears, and he perked a brow as his cranium followed the sound of the voice. What do you want? I want to see her before you move forward with your quest. Was that a part of the agreement, Nee? I know it was not, but I feel I owe her some explanation. Would you deny me? Now? After all this time, Xylius? You know better than to address me thusly, Nee. I am a royal and you are a slave. I am still stationed with my lineage, and this you could never remove. She must know, or you will never fully withstand her instability. Instability? You abandoned the things you should have stayed for, Nee. How can you speak to me of stability? Heh, you walk on fragile grounds, weigh your words wisely, lest I be forced to move on protocol due to the severity of your approach. Severity? You caused the very thing which put her into this place. Do you not think she will hate you for that? She will never know, and you will never tell her. She will see you as a murderer. You know this is the way of our kind. Gia was in her prime. What did you expect of me? I have a codex to uphold, and a people to lead, and I do not abandon my holds. Will she have a handmaid? I have not decided where she will be kept just yet. You surely can't be imagining she should stay in confinement. The vine sap will intoxicate her beyond coherence. I used a plume of sedation on her. But I saw her brought in with the vine bindings. And you think this means something? Xylius crooned antagonistically. I think you are sorely miscalculating her potential. Will you grant me this favor, your highness? The pleading sound of the woman's voice echoed with a hesitance that reflected a deeper emotional wounding, as if her voice might shatter should her words not be heeded and her request not be granted. I will see her soon enough. My guard is gone to bring her, and then I suspect she will need bathing. I will grant you this chance to show your loyalty to Umbra, Nee. You will be given the duty of dressing and readying her for dinner with me upon her delivery to the court. Oh, thank you, your majesty, sir. Nee's former tone seemed to instantly shift as delight at Zai's words overtook her vocals with such elevated joviality that she nearly seemed to be shouting. That will be enough, Nee. Remove yourself from my sights until I call for you again, and do not ever approach me as you have this night. The next time you do, I assure you, will be your very last. Zai's eyes flashed, a deep and angry red filling the entirety of his iris, but seemingly simmering down in moments as Nee quickly curtsied, her eyes averted from him with not a word uttered, and just as the guard before had done, hurriedly removing herself from the prince's sight, evidence of how well all of Umbra obeyed anything muttered from Exilius's mouth. Clank. A sudden alarming noise brought Eulalia to an instant rising as her eyes parting widely. Excuse me. Clank. A sudden alarming noise brought Eulalia to an instant rising, her eyes parting widely as they shifted about the perimeter. Again, she knew only that the entity had brought her to his home, and she now found herself peering at iron bars parting and the wretched sound of prison doors parting. Girl, are you awake? A rough voice hit her, but Yuli instantly recognized that this was not the same voice that she had first encountered. I am? Where am I? Came her voice, speaking with bold conviction even as she rose to stand with clenched fists held tightly at her sides. Umbra Dungeons, the voice remarked, stepping from the shadows into the pale light where Yuli could only just make out that there was nothing notable about this guard. He was portly with balding brown hair and seemed rather unhealthy. She wondered then if every guard in this place was of equal measure, and what that meant for the rest of her stay. What am I doing here? Why did Exilius bring me here? Eulalia demanded, her eyes narrowing as she stared directly into the guard's face. I cannot say, girl. I am not told things beyond my need of knowing. But you have been instructed to come along, so come on. There was a nagging sense of doom that had begun to work its way within Yuli's chest, and the way the guard's demeanor did not seem to shift indicated that he would have no further lip given regarding her movement. Light footfalls carried her forward, and she soon found herself standing outside of her cell with the guard pointing forward. March. Yuli's fist closed at her sides, and with a heavy gulp she nodded, legs feeling heavy as lead seemed to be dragging upon the stony ground, and the sensation of the guard's eyes burning into her spine seemed to be the only thing pushing her forward. Is he... The trailing of her words surprisingly wasn't dismissed, and Yuli was surprised to hear the guard speak a bit softer than previously. He is not to be tried, girl. There is more than you know. More than me? An uncertain murmur slipped past her, and with it, the two of them rounded a corner to reveal yet another set of large wrought iron gates with two more guards stationed, their glaring eyes turning to return the same burning gaze that she could feel penetrating her back even as she came to a sudden halt. Oomph! Open the gates. Prince Zai is waiting for this one. Make haste. Is that your favorite command? Eulalia chuckled, suddenly finding the order of his words both amusing and instantly recognizing her mistake. Hush it, you. I warn you now. I can be your greatest ally or your worst enemy. What shall it be, girl? My name is not girl. It's Eulalia. Your name is whatever his lordship should determine it to be, girl. I am not a girl. I've long grown past it. Funny. That's what all the girls say. Later they learn. Learn what? Not to try my patience. Now move it through those gates. Having failed to gauge her surroundings, Eulalia jumped, her flesh riddling with shock waves as the crackling sound of a whip echoed mere inches from her ear. You could have split my cheek. Her hand instantly lifted to flatten against her face, and her lips fell agape with stunning surprise as her palm remained pasted to her skin. You have a hard skull on that head of yours. Fancy it wise to use whatever brain rests within it and move, eh? He furrowed his eyebrows then, crinkling his forehead with frustration as a scowl overtook his face. Now concerned that his next motion might actually mar her flesh, Eulalia found the courage to step through the gate and continued into the corridor. A dark shadow fell over the hall, with only a few sporadically placed torches to guide in the darkness. The luminant reflection of embers flickering upon dark stones gave the appearance of the ground being wet. Though an illusion, Eulalia's apprehension lifted as she strode onward, and with careful steps she slowly made her way forth, with no true clue where she was to go. You will stop in 5 paces, move not an inch more from that point. Yes, sir, murmured Eulalia, her voice a mere whisper on bated breath. You will enter the next chamber to be bathed. After your bathing, a handmaid will deliver you before the prince's court. You are not to speak unless addressed. You will keep your eyes averted to his lordship until he calls your attention to peer at his face. Do you understand, girl? Yes. Inside, a fear unlike any other had boiled up within, and Eulalia knew her voice had been lined with tepid intimidation, even as she muttered it. And that's where I'm going to stop with our little read through for tonight. Again, this book is a limited edition collection. If you haven't already got it, please go get it. Um, Add it to your collection. I promise you, will not let you down. If you are a fantasy, paranormal romance fan, um, it's steam levels of like 3 to 4. It's really good. It's got a lot of different diverse types of stories, and I really think you guys will enjoy it. So go ahead and go get it before it gets taken down. Get it in time for the holidays. Gift it to some people that like fairy tales and books, and know that there are each story is 15 to 25,000 words, and there are almost a dozen stories. So it's like 800-page book. It's pretty long. Um, It is available in Kindle Unlimited if you'd like to go get it there. And stay tuned and stick around because we're going to have the Snowden release party soon. And there's a lot of exciting things that are going on. I do have a giveaway going on for the Snowden paperback. And I am hoping that one of you is going to be the lucky winner here soon when we have the launch party. And I am really looking forward to that event and all the wonderful authors that are joining us, which we have a pretty cool lineup, and I'm really excited and thank all of you who are going to be attending. And again, we're going to have a lot of fun, so stay tuned. That is going to be on December the 5th from 10 a.m. That is noon Central. But anyway, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is my time, noon Central Standard Time, and it's going to end at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard, which is 7 p.m. Central Standard. Um, and we're going to have games, giveaways, you know, all kinds of cool authors, and we would really like to connect with readers, make some new friends, and just be supportive and enjoying creative arts and what we do to bring entertainment to everybody. And those who are common followers of mine or are already familiar with me know that I'm really big on educating, inspiring, and entertaining. And that I called myself a woman with a dream and a pen. So, yeah, I just really like to help and be involved in creative arts and share my stories. And thank you for listening to me read a couple of chapters out of my Exalted Anomaly Eulalia story tonight. If you haven't already read it, please go check it out. Um, you know, I will see you guys again shortly. Have a good night. Bye.